Thank you very much, Stefano, for your introduction. I'm gonna be slightly more pragmatic and tune it down from Machiavelli and Hobbes to the teatro here at the Badia, and I would like to very warmly welcome all of you to this annual dissemination conference of the EU Democracy Observatory. I'm very glad to see this enormous turnout at this conference here. We have been doing this at UDU, as Stefano has mentioned before, several times. It started off here with a large conference 4 years ago, and then we started to migrate to Brussels, and we're back here in Florence. And I'm very glad we could come back to Florence for this dissemination conference. It is a very important success for UDU to see so many people here. We innovated this year by having a call for papers, and this call generated a lot of demand. We had only the possibility to take about 1 out of 3 paper proposals for this conference, and for the first time also in this dissemination conference cycle, we have parallel sessions that will separate us in 2 groups for parts of this conference. Let me say a few words on the EU Democracy Observatory itself. We created it indeed 6-7 years ago here at the EUI when the European Union was living another little crisis, trying to identify what it was all about and to give itself a constitution. In 2005, if you remember, and I'm sure you do, the French and the Dutch voters said no to the constitutional treaty, and there was a lot to be read in the newspapers and in the media in general about this no to the European project in these 2 countries. And there was also a lot of not so well-founded comments that one could read about democracy, the working of democracy in the European Union. And we thought back then that actually here in Florence we have quite a lot of output in the field of European democracy and all its components that is just not sufficiently well bundled together and not sufficiently well shown and translated for the wider public. And we thought maybe creating such an observatory would help our work to get better disseminated, get more attention, and maybe also attract scholars from elsewhere to interact with us. And I think on all of these items we have succeeded quite well so far. UDU has 4 sub-observatories that are concerned with various aspects. We have the Observatory on Citizenship that is led by Rainer Bauberg and by Joe Shaw, which has become a major resource of data and analysis on the issue of citizenship in Europe. We have the Observatory on Public Opinion that is led by Mark Franklin, former EUI professor, and myself. There as well we have quite a few projects and generated quite a lot of data on European democracy. The same goes for the Observatory on Political Parties, which is directed by Luciano Bardi and has been co-directed by the late Peter Mayer, and it will be co-directed in the future by Hans-Peter Kriesi, who just joined the EUI faculty. And finally, we have the Observatory on Institutions and Institutional Change, that is co-directed by my colleagues Adrienne Héritier and Bruno De Witte, and who are looking in their work at how democracy from an institutional perspective is changing in the European Union. Now, I think the success of today's and tomorrow's conference has to do with at least 2 factors. First, over the years, I believe, and I think the conference shows it, UDU has become a major platform in Europe to discuss democracy and issues concerning democracy. It is a place where not just academics exchange their points of views, but also policymakers, members of civil society organizations, the media, and others. So I think the success of this conference has to do with the success of UDU itself. But the second reason, of course, has to do with the topic of this conference itself, which is, of course, extremely timely and of highest interest to any student of European democracy. Every year we give our observatories, one of our observatories, kind of the lead in the organization and the conception of the dissemination conference. This year we chose to do this with Adrien Héritier and Bruno de Witte's observatory on institution. It was a great pleasure together with them to come up with this, with the conception of this conference. And I think the titles, if you look at the program a little bit, the titles of the plenary sessions and the different parallel panels that will take place quite well illustrate what we intend to do over these 2 days. We will look at both national and European institutions, such as parliaments at both levels. We will also look at the responses that are generated by political actors, such as parties, for example, to these to the problems created by the euro crisis. We will look at changes in policy, most notably the fiscal policies, of course, at the national level, but also at the problems and issues surrounding the establishment of the fiscal pact and of ESM, of the ESM treaty, that we will try to scrutinize a little bit before we conclude the conference with a roundtable in which we will come back to the initial question of whether the euro crisis is also a demo crisis, as we framed it. So, before we start, I just would like to once again very warmly welcome you to this conference, and I would like to warmly thank two very important persons here, Monique and Elisabetta of the conference unit, who have logistically taken care of you all and of us all here in the room, that this conference will work smoothly. And then I would also like to express my deep gratitude to Valentina Bettin, who has been the engine behind this whole project here of this conference, both intellectually and organizationally. She was really at the core of the organization of this conference. And last but not least, I would also like to acknowledge the important support that we have received in the past, and also for today's conference, by the Jean Monnet program of the European Union, which allowed us indeed to take this project ahead. So I wish you all a very successful 2 days looking at the issues of the euro crisis and European democracy, and I think we can start now with the first panel. Thank you. And I have the pleasure to take the floor right again, because I am chairing this first plenary session called The Euro Crisis and European Institutions. And we have 3 panelists that have accepted to present in this panel. First, Adrien Héritier, who has a co-authored paper with Yannis Karagiannis, Bruno de Witte, and Chiara Ziglioli from the European Central Bank. And every author and a participant has about 20 minutes for the presentation of the paper, which will succeed each other, and then we have some time for discussing them. So without further delaying the conference here, I would like to give the floor to Adrien right away.
Thank you very much.
Important information. This is live streamed on the web, the entire conference. So whenever you take the floor, I'd really like you to use the microphones, because otherwise you won't be heard elsewhere.